feel like Jess should have done Ludacris right there. If you know, you know.
That was a lot of faith in me to do Ludacris on stage. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Feel free to grab that last cup of coffee as you make your way to your seat. My name is Jess Tufnell. If we have not met, I am a proud PL coordinator of Early Math. On the stage with me is Rusty Anderson. I'll introduce you. And in the back of the room is Trish Dunn and Sonia Malik, who are also PL coordinators, and we make up the Early Math team. Will you guys wave in the back? Hi.
Wave at them. Wave at them.
Yeah, wave at them.
Hi,
We're going to
Trish.
do some
Hi,
waving
Sonia.
in a second. All right, thank you for being here today. We are super excited that you all made the trip to Lansing, whether it was near or far, to spend the day with us. And we're going to say some hello to some people. So this is day 2 of the Early Math Leadership Institute, where we are welcoming some new friends. So if you were here yesterday, can you just give us a wave? Hold your wave up. Okay, thank you. If you're here and you're new today, like those fun little minions, can you wave to us? Don't be embarrassed to be a minion. Keep waving. Okay. Remote site, we're going to pan to you here for a second. We have some friends in Marquette Alger. Hello, friends. Thanks for joining us on day 2. We hope to hear from your voice a couple times today in the live room. And now we're going to all wave to each other. So we were here yesterday, we have new friends, and we have our remote site. You're supposed to wave.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Behind me on the screen is our purpose. Maybe you've been to an Early Math Leadership Institute before. Maybe you have not. Take a second to read. Today is all about systems, and we do the work of systems together, no matter what your instructional leadership role is. So we're going to lean into that today and think about how we can support each other to better support teachers, to better support children. We have a quote on the screen. Take a second to read that. With an elbow partner, go ahead and take 30 seconds to share what this says, means, and matters to you. I'm sure that wasn't enough time. Many of us could probably talk about this quote from Learning Together all day, myself included. As leaders in this room, this is why we do this work, to support teachers, to support children. And that work is really hard and messy, which is why we're here together today. So let's dive in. Either on your, or in your bags maybe, you have the book Learning Together. And if you don't, there's a QR code on the screen. You're going to find page 232 and locate the heading Conclusion.
Jess, if they don't have the book, they can use the QR
Yeah,
code.
you can scan that QR code with your phone. So take about 15 more seconds to get there. And as you get to that heading, go ahead and read just the part labeled Conclusion. It's just a couple of paragraphs to ground us in our day. Alrighty, time to talk with a new friend. There's a process that is living behind me. We are going to stand up and hold up the number that you identify the most with. So if you work at a local school district, you're going to hold up a 1. If you work at an ISD, you're going to hold up a 2. And if you work somewhere else, you're going to hold up a 3. You're going to find a new friend that isn't at your table or in the vicinity of your tables, if you're here with a larger team, to engage in dialogue around the 2 questions that are bolded at the bottom of the screen. You want to offer a paraphrase or add on?
We're going to hold up a number. We're going to find a new friend that we might not know with a different number, and we're going to talk about any one of the 2 questions that are on the screen. If those don't fit, choose your own question. Have a good conversation. Ready, go. Al. Thank you.
Good job, guys. Stay where you're at. We're going to go ahead and hear from 3 different humans. You can share your own thought or you can share your partner's thought. And behind me will live the questions on the screen that we were maybe chatting about or something else. We have some mic runners running around. We're going to hear from 3. Who wants to be our 1? Oh, we have the remote site. Okay, you'll be our 1. Who wants to be our 2? Remote site, get ready. Over here we have our 2, and then who wants to be our 3? 3 is right here. All right, remote site, if you guys want to unmute. And maybe we'll even show them. We'll show them while Rachel maybe reads off what they're hoping to say. No? They're going to share? Okay. I can hear you. Hi, Chrissy.
Hi, how are you guys?
We're so happy that you're sharing.
Yeah, all right. So anyways, we have Whitney and Jolene who want to share something.
All right. So we appreciated the phrase, we all stand to benefit, but this means that everyone has to own the hard parts too. Because we were saying that we appreciate that they're talking about the hard parts because as we've talked about through this conference, the only way we're going to get through the hard parts is to own them and to figure out a way through together.
This work of supporting teachers and children is hard. It's going to take all of us in this room and beyond to make changes across the state. Thanks, Remote Site.
And 2.
Hi, I'm Amber. I'm from Genesee ISD, and my partner and I were chatting about this word negotiate. So how the book referenced that we adults negotiate our new and changing roles. And for me, sports analogies are always helpful in thinking about things like this. And so we had a conversation about running and how when you're in the middle of a race or a workout, it's really easy to say, I just want to be done. This is hard. I just want to give up. This is painful. And instead we negotiate with ourselves, right? Well, maybe I'll just do 1 more mile. Well, maybe I'll just give 2 more minutes. Maybe I'll just work for 30 more seconds, right? It's that internal negotiation that keeps us going because we know that the end in mind is worth it. And all of the hard work is as well. So.
Yeah, 2 claps for that. Let's go. Thanks, Amber. You're really naming for us that the things that are at the end of the easy path are not worth chasing. This work is hard, but it's worth it because the outcome at the end is what we're after. Thanks, Amber. 3?
I'm here. I am Tammy. I'm also with GISD. And one of the things we talked about is the whole concept of you get used to things, so you become compliant and you do the things that you've always done. However, some of the things that I've started to take with me in my life, and I think also goes through with teaching, is if you're not growing and you're not learning, your body becomes stagnant and you're dying. So some of the things that we need to think about when I read this is that we have to question and we have to change and we have to learn or we have to grow or we're sitting there just basically deteriorating and dying. So something to think about.
Yeah, a main point that you're making for us, and thank you for sharing, is that if we don't question and interrogate the work that we're all doing individually, we can't move forward as parts of a system that want to do better. So hold that lens today while we think through coherence with Allison.
Thank your partner. Fist bump, high five, elbow bump, and head back to home base. On the screen, we see a quote from the read that we just did in the conclusion. The part that's highlighted in yellow is most important for us, and something that oftentimes we don't think enough about because of all the pressures of time and the chaos of day-to-day work. This part in yellow is what we're here for. It is about making schools and districts and ISDs places for teacher learning just as much as it is about student learning. That's the work that we're going to embark upon today. On the screen, it might be froze, but what will pop up is, on the left-hand side, some things that are practices that we might not hope to engage with as we think about educator and leader learning. On the right-hand side of that are the shifts that we're hoping to make and move toward as a community. You've seen this slide before. However, it's important, as Allison will probably say soon, to name the things that we're trying to move away from in our practice as leaders. Take a look at the left-hand side of the screen, and these are things that none of us in this room do. People out there do, though, right? Like, what do these things look like in practice? Let's just take 30 seconds with an elbow partner. Name one way we may have in our career seen the things in red on the left come to life, whether it's something that we did, a trap that we fell into, or one that we were a part of. Just have a quick conversation about the things in red with an elbow partner. That's our bell, and that's our bell. The things in red happen all the time. Like we heard earlier, just a minute ago, those are the easy ways to do professional learning for adults. The things on the right-hand side are the hard way, and those are the things that we're working toward and going to be talking about all day today. Let's read this one together on the count of three. 1, 2, 3.
Changing normalized practices in teaching requires changing normalized practices in leadership.
This work is about us, how we do our day-to-day work, and how we enact our roles today, tomorrow, and beyond. We're going to have a lot of opportunities for new learning today around systems that actually support adult learning. And we'll have a lot of opportunities to collaborate within our teams and with other friends in the room to harvest as many ideas as we can about how we can change our day-to-day work so that teachers have better experiences and children have better experiences. Yesterday was about our children. So if you were here yesterday, you know that we talked a ton about classroom practice. We spent a lot of time diving into the complexity of teaching mathematics, what research says and how we can have a critical eye for research, and what classroom teaching and learning could be. We watched a couple videos. One, the fractions video, was fantastic. And two, the video of the Learning Lab in a teacher timeout was great to see what leader practice could look like. Today is about leaders. It's about us in the room and how we can act our role. We have many opportunities and resources that we'll talk about here in just a second to support us as we think about our transformation. Take a second to read the quote. This came up earlier as well. Again, it's about us making conscious decisions to shift the ways that we work to better serve teachers and kids.
Ways that we try to shift our work include using our design principles as a window and mirror to reflect and refine on our professional learning system tools, events, routines, and roles. We've seen this before. However, it wouldn't be an Early Math Leadership Institute if we weren't handing you some new tools. We're going to be a little bit more graceful than this cat, though, to embed them within our professional learning systems as we dive into them. Okay, not on your tables, but in your 3 rings, instructional leaders that you picked up this morning, or friends from yesterday, you would have got these yesterday. We have some new cards. We're calling it an expansion pack because you got to catch them all. Thought that would land a little better. Okay, thank you. Today we're going to be really thinking about coherence, and we have a new routine for you to bring back to your context, whatever that might be, to assess for coherence. Allison is going to help us to dive into that. Yesterday, we also had the opportunity to see a teacher timeout. We actually have a design card for that too. No, I'm not done with that one. Thank you. Okay, and then we also have a routine for Pass the Pen. So there are a couple moves that are going to allow us to be messy as leaders, and these cards are going to support us to do that. You're going to get to learn about those in your breakout sessions today as well. On the next slide are 2 more design cards that we thought about yesterday. So if you were here yesterday, these probably look familiar to you. And we are going to ask that you, at some point today, find a friend that you don't know and say something about the cards that you experienced yesterday, whether it was around shifts or the problem of practice routine and breakouts.
Thing that will be really important, and if you're going to hold on to something today, hold on to this. The design cards will help us throughout the school year. As you think about planning a professional learning session, a leadership team meeting, a staff meeting, insert whatever other event you might have. These design cards have routines that basically give you an agenda to talk about the hard things with the people you serve. Hold the design cards close. They will be in your back pocket for this whole school year.
So the quote on the screen right now is also something that's familiar to us. If we want change, we have to be the change. As leaders, if we want something different for children, we have to do something different as adults.
Here are our goals for our day today. The first, most important part of this one is instructional transformation. The things that we're talking about in math, literacy, and all other content areas are not subtle shifts. The changes in leadership are not subtle shifts. We are talking about a transformation. That's what our work is today. And 2, As Jess just said, these are the foundation on which we build everything when we think about adult learning. Again, the design cards name the design principles and give you routines to embed them in your day-to-day work. They are the foundation. And 3. If we leave everything we talk about and learn about in this room today, this event is unsuccessful. You all, each individually and as a team, have to walk out with a plan to shift some of the things and use some of the resources that you have in front of you today. That is our goal.
On the screen now is the agenda. Our entire day is about coherence and how to craft it. We're going to support each other through some different assessing for coherence routines and breakouts this afternoon that are centered around our enabling conditions. And we have lunch planned in there somewhere. We'll take some breaks. If you have to use the restroom, they're out this way. Coffee is in the back.
Yes, coffee, water will be there the whole day. So anytime you need some more, follow Jess and I. We will probably be going back and forth to get more coffee quite often. So feel free to do the same.
We know this friend. We are so lucky and privileged to have Dr. Allison Fox-Resnick with us here today. But importantly, she doesn't just come to our events to stand up on the stage. She really serves as a thought partner for the early math team. So when we're thinking about something really hard and challenging, we call Allison and we say, hey, could you help us think about this? She knows our work well, and we are honored to have her support us to think about coherence today.
Let's welcome Allison with a round of applause. How was that? Is that good?
Get out of here. All right, good morning, everyone. It's so good to see you all. I think the lights are a little better today. It feels a little more alive. My goal is actually not be sitting very much at all today, so just prepare yourselves for that. We already saw this slide. I think I use this slide more than any other slide because it really grounds everything I think about and everything we are going to think about today and we think about all the time. This challenge of how do we make our schools more powerful places for educators to learn so that kids will actually experience something different. We're going to jump right into the hard stuff today. This is just a truth. I think we've all experienced it. And part of what makes it hard is to change that would require all of us to do something fundamentally different. The people in the room and all the other leaders across the state in all of the different roles would have to do their jobs in really different ways if things were actually going to change for kids. And that's, in my opinion, why for decades and decades and decades we keep trying to change what's happening for kids, and it doesn't quite happen to the extent that we want it to because the grown-ups are still all doing their jobs in the same way they've always done them. So I'm going to push you over and over and over and over again today. What can you do that's fundamentally different this year? It can be a tiny thing, it can be a big thing. If we all go and do our jobs the exact way we've done them this year, nothing will change. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about the routines and help you think about how they can be tools, and then we're going to dive right into using some of them. I see routines as a way to support us to do our day-to-day work in a fundamentally different way. They support us to have different conversations. They support us to talk about the hard stuff. Here's how I've thought about designing them. They're designed to be short and pretty simple, really. They're designed to be built into existing spaces that you have. And this is key and might feel a little different to us They're designed to be done over and over and over and over again. So often when we have some professional learning activity, it's like everyone does it once and then, oh, I've already done that. These are designed to be done over and over and over again because they help us have new conversations, they get deeper and deeper, and because our schools and our districts and our ISDs are changing all the time. So actually the conversation needs to happen over and over again as we make sense of our systems as they evolve. An important thing is that they're designed really at this intersection of research and your context. So you don't see necessarily in the routines, like this is from X, Y, or Z study. But know that how they're designed is deeply grounded in research on the kinds of conversations and changes we need to make in our systems, the kinds of ideas that need to be brought to the center of our thinking and our design of our systems. Research is deeply embedded in them, but not in the way we're used to seeing of kind of citations and studies put forth. Know that the theory and the research is deeply embedded in them, but the idea is it helps you bring the research and your context together to make sense of what to do for your people. They're also really designed to disrupt our traps, our habitual ways of this is just how we do it, that we all fall into. These conversations are designed to push us out of that. They're also designed to support us to make sense of things across different perspectives. These conversations get more and more powerful as you bring people who usually don't work together into the same conversation. And one key point I want to make, and you'll see me playing with the routines a little bit today, they're not scripts. They should be adapted for different groups of people. How I would do one of these routines in this giant room versus on a Zoom call versus in a room with 5 people, really, really different. How I would do it with people who have been learning with me for a really long time versus just met me, really different. How much time I would spend on different parts of it, really different. See them as things you can play with and expand and adapt. They are not scripts. All right, yesterday, just as an example, we did a lot of playing with this tiny little routine, right? This T-chart where you think about what are the ways this would look like or sound like if it did reflect the shifts we're trying to support, and what are the ways it would look like or sound like that would not. I want to just emphasize that you can put anything in your work at the center of this. This is an example of why you would repeat it over and over again. You could do this about a lesson in a new curriculum, an instructional practice, a new assessment, a coaching practice. How would we think about our leadership team meetings? What would a good leadership team meeting look like and what would it not look like? Super important conversation. What do our evaluations look like and sound like or not look like or sound like? What are our staff meetings? What about just a turn and talk in the classroom? So I just use those as examples of this is a simple T-chart, but you could do it over and over and over and over again, and your team would get deeper and deeper into their shared understanding of the specific vision that you're working towards, and it would help you really name what is a good leadership team meeting for us. What are we trying to work towards? What are we trying to disrupt? Okay, so that's just an example of how one routine can be used over and over again to change the kind of conversations you're having and the work you're doing. All right, we're going to dive into a different one. If you're following along in your design cards, it's an adaptation of this one up here, and it helps us see our full, messy, incoherent systems. So I want you to get ready to see the mess. You can do this, again, with lots of different role groups at the middle. So I've done all of these. Raise your hand if you've done this routine with me before. Okay, if there's any part of your brain that's like, I've already done this, I'm gonna check out, no. The whole point is we learn more every time we do it. We learn more when we do it with different groups of people. We see our systems for how they are right now, which is always different than how they were 3 months ago. So this is, again, a shift we're making of it's useful to have similar conversations and do similar routines over and over again, not just once. All right, so here's what I'm gonna have you do at your tables. We're kind of in the pre-K5 space today, so just at your tables really quickly, decide what feels most useful to think about today. A preschool teacher, a first grade teacher, or a fourth grade teacher. Go ahead and decide, and when your table's ready, will you show me a thumbs up? I'm seeing some thumbs. It really doesn't matter. You'll get a lot out of it, anything you pick here. Okay. Is everyone ready? All right. Again, you could get so much out of this no matter which one you picked, but it's useful to all pick the same one in your group right now. Okay, here's what you're gonna do. I need everyone to grab Post-its. And when I say grab Post-its, I mean you should make sure you have at least 20. You're gonna need at least 20 Post-its. And then the challenge I'm gonna give you is to not talk to each other for the next 5 minutes. Are you ready? Here's your challenge with your Post-its. So you're thinking about your group of teachers. It's a preschool teacher, a first grade teacher, a fourth grade teacher. One idea per Post-it is an important piece here. Write down everything you can think of that they're going to experience, be expected to do, come in contact with this coming school year. Anything counts. Kid throwing up all of a sudden. Counts. Angry parent phone call. Counts. New assessment or curriculum. Counts. Union contract. Counts, okay? Anything. And your goal is 20. One idea per Post-it. There really are no right answers here. Just whatever is coming to your mind, jot it down. teachers, of course, are humans, turns out. Look and or just think, have I included anything about what it means to be a human as a teacher? Teachers have lives outside of work, for instance. Might shock you. Teachers have relationships with people in their building. Okay, go ahead and see if you can write 2 more. All right. It's okay if you don't feel done. You actually probably could never be done. Here's what you're going to do. Around the room, there's blank poster papers. Your group's going to grab a paper. You can stay up on the wall. You can come back to your table, wherever you want to work. You're going to put all your Post-its up on the paper. If a way of starting to group them a little bit, you're like, oh, these go together, you could put them together, but that's not an essential thing to do. It's just if you feel drawn to it. If as you are putting them up, you're like, oh, we forgot such and such, add the Post-it. So bring some blank Post-its with you. And then just kind of sit with, what do you notice? What do you wonder? I just want to point out, this is intentionally kind of a short time. So this isn't about everyone reads their Post-its individually. This is about put them all up, see what emerges for you. Okay? Go ahead. Okay, I'm going to pause you. Just stay right where you are and look up at me for a second. You're going to keep going, but I want you to send 2 scouts. Oh, where'd my slide go? To peek at other people's posters and come back with 2 ideas your group didn't think of yet. Do not, this happened once, do not take their Post-its. You are finding the ideas and writing a new Post-it. Go find at least 2 ideas your group didn't think of. Keep going. Write it down. Write it down. Oh, I love that. Okay. I'm going to ask you to make your way back to your seats. You can leave your poster up. We'll come back to it. Make your way back to your seats. Okay, as people are making way back to their seats, here's the next step. I find that just that part of putting all the Post-its up surfaces some pretty interesting insights in teams. So I would love to hear 3 things, 3 people share what's something that surfaced in your conversation. It could be an aha, it could be a wondering, it could be a, oh man, we didn't even think about X. 3 things. We have one right here. Oh, perfect.
when we started to look at all of our sticky notes, our aha personally was that, man, we really focused on compliance and more of like the to-dos or some negatives. So when we went to scout for new ideas, we decided we wanted to focus on some positives, and then that allowed us to add some additional things too. So.
Number 2. There's one back there.
One of the things that we also noticed is that as we were putting these on, I just lost my train of thought. That many of our topics were school related. We did have some personal things that happen in a teacher's life, but they were very minimal compared to all the things that they're thinking about their day to day is all school related.
Interesting. And one more. Oh, there's one here. Yay.
We had a conversation about maybe it's COVID, pre-COVID vote versus post-COVID, but pre-COVID, and maybe it's teacher shortage versus not, but seems like pre-COVID, all of those things you felt a guilt or a pressure to fit in, and if you couldn't fit them in your normal day, you stayed after, you came early, you took it home with you, and more post-COVID, if you're not doing that as much, when does that all get done? And so trying to balance some of that too.
Okay, so a couple of themes here, right? One is to just start with this last one. We realize how much is on teachers' plates that we often are not thinking about. Another thing it can help us realize is what are the things we are mostly paying attention to and what are we not really thinking about? So it's worth sitting with. If I mostly thought about compliance things or about in-school things, that means I'm maybe mostly planning for my teachers, thinking about what I need to get them to do, and not maybe thinking about them as whole humans who have lives. Interesting to just notice, like, where did your brain go? And if that's where your brain often goes, what does that mean about how you're designing systems for the educators that you work with, right? Also, just to note, no matter what role group you put in the middle of that, as I think you could imagine, the Post-its look the same, right? It's not like only teachers have too many Post-its on their poster paper. You could imagine what the poster paper for your role would look like, or other people you work with would look like, right? All educators have way too much on their plates. We can just name that. All right. So what does this have to do with coherence? Often, when we think about coherence, we jump to like, okay, what do I have to do? We don't stop and actually see the system through the lens of coherence. So that's what this morning is about. We just took a first step. You actually have to see the whole system in order to start thinking about making it more coherent. If we just stay in our little pocket of the system and try to make it coherent there, we're not actually thinking about the full experience. So there's a lot of definitions of coherence. I actually hate most of them because most research about coherence makes it seem like there's this shiny, perfect place you'll reach where everything is magically coherent. That is fundamentally not the reality of school systems. Our school systems are constantly changing. There's things that are always going to be out of our control. We are never going to reach this perfect magical space of everything fitting together perfectly, right? That's not going to happen. So this is the definition I've been playing with lately, and we're going to unpack it in different ways today. The big first piece is coherence is experienced. It's not what we plan for, it's how our people experience it. So you've all experienced someone being like, we really trust each other here, and really how you experience it is not that, right? This is the same way. a lot of times people are like, we are going to be really coherent. And you're like, well, nothing fits together, okay? If our people that we're designing for do not experience it as coherent, it is not coherent. So here's my question for you. Grab your phones. I want you to pick one word or phrase that describes how you think teachers experience the system we just mapped. And we wonder why teachers burn out, right? All these people spend all this time wondering. How often, though, I would just have you think about this, how often in team conversations does the conversation center more on why aren't teachers doing X versus, man, our teachers are so overwhelmed. How could we make them less overwhelmed? Just think about like which, across that spectrum, where your team conversations usually end up being. So another thing this routine can help us do is pull back and sit in the shoes of whoever we're designing for. All right. So we did this little slide yesterday, so, and maybe you've seen it a lot, but I think it helps us illustrate a next layer of this. So here's my teacher. They're working really hard. They're trying to move up their trajectory to learn some new things, right? This is something like what you just created, although maybe this will help you think about something you didn't have yet. This is a different way of representing the very complex system all around them. It's totally incomplete, just like your posters are. But all of these parts of the system are pushing things out to teachers in some way. Okay. And there's so many more things, right? Teachers don't exist in a bubble. School is a fundamentally public thing, right? That exists within our broader society, and all of these messages are everywhere surrounding teachers as they come into the classroom. Here's why this matters, is if I'm learning or trying to learn, I'm gonna end up being one of these people, right? And all of us have been one of these people before when we were expected to do something new. But I think often we kind of wonder, well, why won't they do it? Why are they giving up? Our posters around the room, look at all these Post-its. That's part of the explanation. Here's the other reason this matters. I'm a math consultant, say. I am planning the best PD for Friday. And I've even tried really hard to make sure it's part of a longer arc of things. There's gonna be a coaching, like I'm gonna do some coaching afterwards. There's gonna be a PLC afterwards that's all connected. It's gonna be great. Here's what I know about the system that my teachers are experiencing. Again, made up, right? The grayscale represents how much I know about that part of the system. All right, another example, maybe I'm a continuous improvement facilitator. I'm trying to support a leadership team to really think about their continuous improvement plan. I might really only understand the system in this way. Again, hypothetical. I want you to think about, what would your grayscale look like? What would be blacked out? What's kind of dark gray? What's light gray? What do you have a really deep understanding of? Okay. Turn to your table and tell them something that would be totally like a black box for you. You have no idea, really, or maybe it's a dark, dark gray. Maybe you know this much. What's a piece of the system you really don't know very much about at all? Go ahead. Okay, I'm going to pull you back. And here's my push for you. One thing you could do fundamentally different this coming year is learn more about that part of the system. That is usually not part of our job description. To really understand the other parts of the system that our teachers experience, that is something fundamentally new you could do this year. All by yourself, totally in your control. Learn about other parts of the system so that you can make more sense of how your teachers are experiencing the whole system. Okay? One fundamentally new thing you could do. I'm gonna have you get up again now. And here's the question to think about. What we've just been seeing is this siloing, right? I'm designing for really good whatever I do. You're designing for whatever you do. The teachers are experiencing all of it. Or, if you're a district leader, the principals are experiencing all of it. If you're an ISD leader, the district leaders are experiencing all of it, right? This is true for whoever. Education systems are so siloed. We all just do our job. We do it really well as best we can. This is such good intentions, right? But the people we support experience all of it. So a fundamentally different thing you could do is think about who could I work with? But first I wanted to have you really think about, we're gonna really sit in the hard right now. Why is this a really big problem? So go ahead and find a new friend. Get up, move your body a little bit. And then we'll hear some ideas in the big room. But think about, why does this get in the way of what's best for our people? Okay, I'm going to pause your conversations. All right, I would love to hear 3 more ideas from these rich conversations. I see one. Oh, we have remote site, please.
Can you hear us okay?
We can.
All right, I'm gonna let my table take it away because there are a couple people talking about. We were talking about admin. Yeah. Well, one of the things we were talking about is we go to meetings just like this, and we have all these great ideas, many different roles kind of collectively coming up with solutions together, but then there's not an admin present, somebody who can actually make things happen in the building.
And commit to it.
And commit to it, yes.
I see a
And then
lot
have
of
the buy-in
nodding.
behind it.
Go ahead.
Do you want to add, Shelley, what you were saying?
And then have the buy-in behind it, not just the administrators commit to it, but then how do they get the buy-in from their constituents? Like letters, it's great. You're going to tell all my teachers to do letters. How you can get them to commit to it if admin is not going to do it right alongside them? And I'm learning that in the letters for administration. It's really another thing to add to the admin plate in order to get the buy-ins. They need to be at the trainings of UFly. They need to be at the trainings of number corners. They need to understand it for their walkthroughs and their evaluations. And if they're not at those trainings, how do you get your buy-in from your teachers?
Jeez, I want to applaud you.
I see a lot of nodding here in the big room. Who's at the table matters. We're going to get to that in a moment. 2 more ideas. How does this siloing get in the way of what's best for kids? I know there's more out there. I have one here. And maybe this side of the room. Oh, perfect. Next, over there.
She was supposed to go. So I work at a small rural ISD. We kind of communicated around the fact that we have to know that map you had. We have to know pretty much 90% to 100% of that. At a small rural ISD, or even local for that matter, you are thinking, I need to know a lot of things about, or I know a little bit, about a lot of things, but they expect us, and they as an administrators and teachers expect us to know a lot about a lot. So it feels very siloed in my position, especially of going to all these districts, going, okay, I know a lot of things, but not enough to completely help you until I get in the space of either GELN or like-minded different administrators going, okay, we all feel the same problem. We go back to our locals, we're helping them, we're guiding them, and it impacts our children when they can't get the understanding that we have, but we don't have the capacity to give them that understanding.
I hear 2 really important things there. 1, context matters. All of us are in different contexts, so how our jobs have to unfold, really different. That's why these conversations have to happen in your context, so you can make sense of your context. Okay? The second thing I hear is knowing all the things is really overwhelming, and we could never possibly know all the things. Do not walk away thinking you have to know all the things, right? It's thinking about how do we need to work together differently? What are the this much things I need to know about the other things so that I can effectively understand the system, right? One more over here.
I just wanted to add that I think that people, when I'm thinking about my role, or each person is thinking about their own roles, they don't, they're thinking about how overwhelmed they are, and then they're kind of saying, you know, a different part or a different person, a different role should be doing certain things because they're kind of focused on their world. And so I think it's important to even value like collaboration in general, like for you just to have in the back of your head, like, you know what, I'm overwhelmed. And one of the ways to address this is to find people that I can work with and figure out how we can work better. Because sometimes when we're overwhelmed, we're mostly just thinking about our issue and not how working together is going to help it.
Super important. All right, let's find our way back to our seat. Yes, applause for sure. Okay, we have just a couple minutes and then we're going to take a break. So this point that was just made, hopefully you heard in there something else you could do fundamentally differently. What's another group or individual in your organization, wherever you are working, that you could collaborate with in a different way? When we work together, we can actually design better systems. I want to name, our systems aren't designed for us to work together, right? So I'm not trying to say it's as simple as just going and changing everything. We often can't do that. And that brings me to our elephants again. We had these yesterday for those of you who are here. Maybe you're feeling a little bit like this. We heard this in the first comments from the remote site. And maybe we even just heard this word multiple times, right? Maybe you feel a little overwhelmed. Totally normal. Sit in that discomfort for a second. If we never let ourselves sit in that discomfort, we can never figure out our way out of it, right? Who's in the room really does matter. So one thing just to start thinking about, we'll talk about this more later today. Who in your system do you really wish could do this posted activity we've started to do? And where might you be able to sneak it in? What I've found with this activity is you can't unsee it, right? So who in your system would really benefit from seeing this and not being able to unsee it? But here's the reframe that I'm going to really push you to have today. And this actually, I was just previewing this, wasn't I? What's something you do have control over? And I think about it a little bit like a virus. How could I spread these ideas just a little bit, right? Okay, when we come back, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into really seeing the coherence here. But I'm actually breaking the rules a little bit today and carving out some little chunks specifically to celebrate our early math team, which looks like actually maybe they're not all here. That's funny. That's okay. I'm going to keep coming back to it. We talked about this yesterday for those of you who were here. The really sad news that we're grappling with is that math lost its funding. So these beautiful people who have led super crucial work are no longer going to be in positions where they can lead this crucial work. We're going to keep coming back to this later, but what I've done for break is a bunch of people submitted words of gratitude and celebration for them. They will be coming up on the screen. You could go ahead and pull them up now, actually, if you want. Please take a moment to sit with them over a break, and if you see our friends, say something to them. And you may be, Sonia, if you plug your ears for a second. You may be handed something at some point. Oh, Jess, plug your ears too. Something at some point today to write your own little words of gratitude for the systems that they've built for us and the tools they built for us. Okay, we're gonna come back in 15 minutes and dig a little deeper. Have a good break. What are the things that really sustain teachers and would help our teachers thrive? What if that was our primary lens that we brought to our design of our schools and our systems? Something to think about. Okay. So we're going back to our definition of coherence. And I just want to name so that you can see where this is in your resources. This is the second blue card. I think we called it 5A. And you'll see some of the ideas I'm about to talk about on here. So there's different kinds of coherence is the part we're going to move into now. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. You may notice I repeat things a lot. That's because that's how we actually learn new ideas, by applying them to lots of different situations. So hopefully your brain doesn't go, oh, I already saw these slides. Hopefully your brain goes, what's a new lens or new idea I could have about these ideas, okay? So I like to think about coherence through these 4 different lenses. So think about your Post-its around the room as I talk about these. So coherence can be structural. That's how do things fit together in time and space. So down at the bottom of the slide, you see some examples of what incoherence might sound like. And notice I intentionally wrote them in first person because coherence is experienced. So structural incoherence might sound like I have to do this and this and this and this, but I don't have time. I heard that over here, right? I'm supposed to do all of these things. I don't have time. That is a structural incoherence in the system. Or I'm expected to do this, but I don't have resources to do it. Or that meeting and that meeting are at the same time. What do you expect me to do, right? Can also be conceptual. Conceptual coherence means do the underlying ideas fit together? This is something once you start to notice it, you'll unfortunately notice it everywhere. So incoherences here can sound like, I'm told our priority is blank, but this tool or this role or this policy expects me to do blank, right? So up in the top right, we're told to see kids through an asset lens, but our data routine or a data spreadsheet or how much we do assessment or whatever frames them as numbers and through a deficit lens, right? There's an example of the underlying ideas about who kids are and how we should think about them do not fit together. A real challenge we have to grapple with as a community, I'm just going to name it. There's different ideas about what good teaching is within literacy and math. If we don't sit with that and think about it, we leave it to our teachers to make sense of it. Okay? Coherence can also be relational and cultural. So that's about how do we relate and interact with each other. So my example before of people saying, we trust each other here, but really we do not trust each other. That's a cultural incoherence or a relational incoherence, right? Or we're going to get into this messy collaboration in a moment. We talk a lot about being messy and collaborative. I'm told to be collaborative, but none of our structures support me to be collaborative. Or my supervisor comes in, they're just telling me all the things I did wrong, rather than helping me lean into the messiness of learning to do something new, okay? These are relational incoherences that can exist in our system about what it means to interact with each other and relate to each other. Okay, this last one is political, and there's 2 different ways to think about political. So one absolutely is the capital P politics that education is deeply ensnared inside of, right? Let's not pretend that's not true. Another one, though, is the lowercase p politics, which just means what I was saying earlier. Different people have different amounts of power, whether it's in a classroom, where often a teacher has more power than the children, whether it's at a school level, whether it's at district level, ISD, state, there's different power dynamics in terms of who has money and decision-making power, right? That's just real. So that shows up as incoherences in that we might be saying we're trying to do X, Y, and Z, but all I'm held accountable for by the people in power is this other thing, right? That is a political incoherence in my system. Or maybe it's my goal is to, I don't know, improve mathematics, but we have no resources, right? That's an incoherence in the system. Okay, So there's 4 different lenses. So what I want you to think about, would you be able to refresh my slides by any chance? I want you to think about what's an incoherence through these lenses that our teachers might experience. And I want you to really practice. I found this is hard for people, so notice if this feels hard. Practice saying it from a teacher's perspective. So actually practicing the I. Again, we don't usually take the time to put ourselves in teachers' shoes. The sentence stems are here. You don't have to follow them. But can you come up with one sentence? What's an incoherence teachers might experience this year? Okay, what I want you to do not get stuck on any individual. Go around the table, everyone just say your sentence. Hold each other accountable for saying it from a teacher's perspective. I. Okay, so go around your table and say your sentence. Okay, I'm going to call you back together. Okay. A question I have is, just sit with this for a second. How hard was it, if at all, to not jump in and try to explain something or defend something that someone said? Just maybe think about that. I'm not going to name any names, but I caught at least one person saying, oh, but that's not the plan. That's not what we're going to do. Stop and think for a second. Coherence is experienced, not planned for. I mean, it is planned for. It's not just what you plan though, it's how you experience, how your people are going to experience it. Often we don't let ourselves just really sit with how could really people experience this? We want to jump to what's the plan, or we already thought of that. I'm going to encourage you, use routines like this to let yourself slow down and actually sit in the discomfort, right? Just think about the kinds of conversations we just had this time and all the different turn and talks we've had. Those are usually the conversations that happen kind of in hushed tones in the hallway or over drinks, right? Outside of work. If we never have them in our official spaces, if we can't sit together and how is our system not working, how could we make it better, then we're never going to change our systems. So, thinking about how these routines could help you change the norms of your conversations, what do you sit with and talk about in your teams, is really important because if we don't sit in what feels hard, we can't change it. Okay? So, we're going back to this idea. And we're going to zoom in now on the purpose and nature of the work, part of the coherence definition. I want to name the work could be anything, right? It could be kid learning, it could be principal practice, coaching practice, ISD leadership, state leadership. It could be any piece. There's lots of work across school systems, right? It could even be really narrow of what's the purpose and nature of learning to read. Okay? We really have lots of different purpose and nature of the works that we're trying to design for. What we're going to focus on today for a little bit is educator learning. So I want you to grab your design cards. And it's a new one. It's the green one. And we looked at these before. I want you to take a look at them and then share with a partner 2 things, and make sure you get to the second thing. Remember, we sometimes shy away from this. What feels exciting about these shifts to you? Make sure you get to what feels hard and dig deep and be honest about it. Let's practice saying the hard things out loud. What feels hard about making these shifts? Okay. We're going to be digging much deeper into this, but I wanted to give us a moment to sit with that. Okay, what we're going to dive in together to is this one down at the bottom, which can feel really hard. And we're going to dig into why does this supporting people to be messy and experiment together, why does that feel so hard? So our big ideas about collaborative experimentation are on your yellow card if you're wanting to ground yourself in the design cards. Here's how I think about why this is so important. So see if this describes what we've been talking about for teachers. Probably describes your job, no matter what role you have, teacher or leader in this room. And often I use this framing to say this is why we fall into traps. Totally true. This is also true about it, though. The hardest moments of any of our jobs in education are those tiny moments where we have to figure out what to do. When an unpredictable human does something, usually, and we have to figure out what to do in response. Okay? Those are also the most impactful moments, whether you're a teacher or a state leader. Those tiny moments are what have the biggest impact in any direction, and often we're alone. So the question then is, how do we learn how to do those moments better if we're always alone in them? So what I think our experience would probably tell us, and I'll just emphasize there's many studies that show this too, is that to move along our trajectory, we actually need opportunities to be in those messy moments with other people, to figure them out. That's what moves us up the trajectory. We cannot learn how to do those hard moments in a new way totally by ourselves. And no beautiful PowerPoint presentation, no matter how beautiful it is going to help us know what to do in those tiny moments. Because it really matters, right? It matters who the person is, what our relationship is with them, what happened 5 minutes before, what's happening 5 minutes after, what happened last year. All of that matters for us to make sense of what's the right move to make right now. So if we don't have time to puzzle through that, we can't learn new ways of doing things. I want to name that this is really hard, though. Being able to be messy about our practice feels really risky and vulnerable. It's going to be different for all of us, but it feels risky. You might be engaging with math or literacy content or any other content in a new way. You might be engaging with colleagues in a new way. You might be trying out something really new in terms of your teaching or your leadership. This one's really important. We're all trying to do our jobs in the best way possible. We all want to feel competent at our jobs, right? It feels really uncomfortable when the definition of competence changes. And we're like, wait, how can I be good at my job now? That can feel vulnerable, okay? We also have to make our practice public in order to learn about it with each other. And we honestly cannot know what's going to happen next. It can feel really lovely to do something polished where we know exactly what's going to happen next. That can feel pretty secure. That's not where we're going to learn. So I want to just dive into this word vulnerable a tiny bit because it's important and connects to those ideas. Vulnerable is this combination of uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. That means I'm not certain what's going to happen. There feels some risk, and I feel like emotionally exposed to the people around me, okay? And the combination of risk and emotional exposure can pivot really quickly into shame, which when we're talking about educators can sound like I'm a bad teacher or I'm a bad leader, right? Really quickly, if we try something new, we take a risk and it doesn't feel good and we get a certain kind of response from the people around us, we go immediately to, oh, I'm a bad teacher or I'm a bad leader, okay? Little moves that we make again, those tiny moves we make to unpredictable humans send people right into that shame spot, which immediately shuts down learning. People will show up in different ways. Vulnerability and risk can feel different for different people. For those of you who were at Institute last year for Math Institute, we talked a lot about this, these different ways that we can feel in terms of some people might find something more risky or less risky, right? But what I want to name is there's a spectrum, right? We don't want people over in the red. That's not going to be where you learn. But you can learn in starting like green all the way to purple. That's the learning zone. It could be I still feel nervous, but it feels worth it or intriguing. Or it could feel it doesn't feel risky to me at all. Actually, the part where we're going to grow the most might be right there in the middle, right? Where it feels new enough that there is some risk, but I feel like it's worth it, and I feel like I'll be caught if I fall, right? I won't be pushed into shame. Okay, this requires a really big shift in people. From I learn by myself, I pretend to have it all together, I don't want to be judged, I stick with what feels comfortable and certain. To this other side, and what I want to emphasize here is it feels useful and fun to do this. A layer I want to add on here is our knowing, doing, becoming. There's a misconception that pops up sometimes that you know, then you do, then you become. That is not what this is intended to capture. I actually meant to add it and forgot. There should be like a big scribbly knot of lines in the middle there. We are always knowing, doing, and becoming. It's all interacting all the time, okay? And actually what's key is it's not like we have no becoming and then we find some becoming. That sounds weird. We all have identities already in our roles. So a way to think about it is, this is the identity that most educators might have right now because of the systems we've created around them. You might feel like you have this identity. I think, unfortunately, the higher folks move up the hierarchy, the more people feel like they have to be in that bucket. So this is a becoming challenge, right? How do we support people to move along the trajectory away from an identity where it's, I have to keep it all together, I have to do things by myself, I definitely can't show any messiness, to, I feel like I can show some messiness and dig into this with people. This is where you actually get change. But designing for that, oh, I don't know why that did that, cannot be, this is not a technical acquisition of skills, right? We can't do like some really beautifully delivered PowerPoint and then people will be like, oh yes, I shall now be messy. It's also not a one-off thing. So sometimes what we do is we're like, well, we'll just put up some norms that say we're going to be messy, and then people will be messy. It has to be over time. We have to design a whole system around supporting people to feel more and more comfortable engaging in that risk. It also requires us to disrupt this trap, number 6. If I only feel like I can be messy right in this one piece of my system, that's good, but it's not going to be as good as if I can have my whole system support me to be messy, right? So for instance, if I feel like I can be messy in my math PD, but my principal makes me feel like I cannot be messy at all, that is not going to be a good situation for a teacher to really lead into learning, okay? It takes the whole system. So it takes practices and systems to move along this trajectory. All right, are you ready? We're going to really own the hard parts here. We talked about this at the very beginning. Here's what I want you to do. There's some sticky dots in the middle of your table. So if you can find those. And everyone's going to need some, so you might need to like rip a sheet in half. All right, and in a moment, you're going to take those sticky dots back over to your posters, but I want you to listen really carefully to the rules because they're important. You do not get to argue with each other about where the dots go. Everyone's sense of where a dot should go gets to go there. Okay? The other thing is, and I'm going to tell you where you're going to put your dots in a second once you get to your poster. But the other thing is, you need to really lean into the hard parts. Don't put a sticker where once I tell you the goal, don't put a sticker there. Actually, I can show you the prompt, half the prompt, okay? So I'm going to fill in the blank in a moment. But what we're going to do is put the dot stickers up on Post-its that you think are likely to be experienced as coherent with, I'm not going to tell you the answer yet. Really lean into the hard. Don't add a bunch of like, well, maybe on Tuesdays it is, right? That's not the point here. Do we really let yourself sit with the hard of your system? This is not anyone's personal fault. This is how our systems are designed, okay? And I want you to do it on your own. Then once everyone's put up some dots, then you can talk about it. All right? So go stand by your poster, and then I'll tell you the fill in the blank. All right. Just to remind you, a thing you might have in your brain right now is our different kinds of coherence. So structural, do things fit together in time? Conceptual, do they fit together in terms of their ideas? Relational, political, all of those count. Again, this is by yourself with your dot stickers. You're going to place a dot sticker on individual Post-its you think are likely to be experienced as, are you ready? Our vision of messy collaborative experimentation. Again, lead into the hard. Do any of your Post-its, might they be experienced as coherent with our vision of messy collaborative experimentation? I love that I see people doing it by themselves. Remember, this is not, well, it could be if we did it in this way or that way or this way. It's how do you think people actually experience it right now? If you need to remove a sticker because you realized you were thinking about you could make this coherent, remove the sticker.
We got one stick.
Yes. All right, I'm really interested. Will you turn and face this way and will you hold up on your fingers how many stickers you personally put down? I see some fists. I see some twos. There's a 4. Okay, 6. We have different systems, right? We're in different places in the work. We do all the things differently. So it makes sense that there's variation. But I would just, again, we're sitting with the hard. Let ourselves sit with the hard. If you noticed, oh, we could make that. That's a really good thing to notice, right? We could make that coherent with collaborative experimentation. That's a design space to lean into for this year. But go ahead and take a moment to just sit with this question in your groups. And then we'll do some sharing out whole group. What are the ways our education systems and our society actually impede this a lot? This is not about us as individuals. This is our systems that create this challenge. Why is it hard to have cultures of messy collaborative experimentation? Go ahead and chat. I'm going to share an example of that. They did that in Muskegon. Okay, let's hear some voices from the room. I definitely got stuck in a conversation. Let's hear some voices. Let's sit in the hard together. Can I have 3 volunteers? Let's say the hard out loud. Come on. I have really good wait time, so. Yeah, oh, the prompt's not up there. Could we have the prompt, please? There we go. We have one right here. Oh, one back there. Perfect. Oh, now we have some hands.
Allison, I couldn't leave you waiting. So we talked about the reason why we were able to identify so many messy places is that we put a lot of messiness around systems, right? And we use the analogy of a surgeon. We've never said to a surgeon, hey, we're running out of gloves this week. You need to bring your own. But we have said to teachers, we don't have enough paper this week, so bring your own. And guess what? It's summer, so all the school supplies are on sale, so get a whole bunch of pencils for this year. We don't do that to other professions. We have to make it up as we go along, and that just increases the messiness of the systems that we're trying to build.
It seems really hard to admit to our constituents that we're still trying to figure it out. They bring their children to us every day.
Let's sit with that for a moment. I want to name, let's not pretend that our jobs are public jobs. We are accountable to communities and families, and it feels really hard to say, oh, we really haven't figured it out. The counter to that is we've spent decades pretending we have it all together and nothing has changed for those kids and families that we're accountable for. So I won't hold the space for that's really hard. And if we just keep trying to pretend we have it all together because it feels hard to admit that we don't, that's hard. That's not going to change things, okay? One more? Okay, perfect.
So my group talked about how teachers want to experiment and they want to be collaborative, but there's only so much time in a unit or during a coaching cycle to work on those things. And then at the end of the unit, the students need to know it, they need to have mastered it, and maybe that experimentation felt scary because you weren't sure if it was going to get you to the outcome you wanted. And so it can be hard to lean into that if you're unsure if you're going to have the time to see the results.
Super real, right? Yeah. Oh, one more. Great. Maybe? Rusty, did you see one more?
Sorry, I was clapping by myself for that. Amy and I and Trish and Angela talked about titles and the more leadership-y, that's a new word, title that you have, you're often looked to have the answers and know all the things, and being willing to push up against that norm and saying, I'm not sure, but maybe we could try, is a huge shift for all of us in the room.
Yes. I think the number one thing that stops our systems from changing for kids is leaders being afraid to say, I'm not sure, or maybe I do need to rethink that, or, maybe that is different than I thought, or maybe that isn't working, or maybe we could try. If our leaders don't do that, then we actually can't change very much. Oh, we have one more. It's a hot topic here.
Well, it's in response to that and then earlier, just the fact that we're in the public sphere. So I do want to explicitly bring out a societal component too. And then because here in the United States, we have this dominant culture that prioritizes black and white thinking.
Yes.
Prioritizes speed, prioritizes right and wrong, and is very much counter to gray spaces.
Yes.
Taking time, working together, and being collaborative. So I think that's what has led to this, like, oh, if, leadership-y title, then you must know. And you've got to do all these, have all these dominant culture characteristics down. And furthermore, we, just push out, weaponize the other and everything that is trying to be the other.
100%. So I want to hold space for two things. One is, this is really hard, and a lot of it's totally out of our control, and it's a societal level, right? And also, what are the tiny things we can do differently in our jobs to make it a little bit better every day, every month, every year, right? Those two things we have to hold in tension. All right, we're gonna do one more hard thing. So another way to do this activity, so if you have like a portrait of a graduate or a vision for students, those kinds of documents in your district or school or ISD, this could be a thing that you bring into this conversation. What happens if we put a vision of students at the center of our coherence thinking? I just pulled up, oh, I did not mean to pull up the shifts, that's funny. What I meant to put there was the first math essential is about joy. And on the right, I had the literacy coaches last year at Institute make a word cloud of what they wanted for kids, and you notice joy is in the middle, okay? So I also think it'd be hard to find someone who doesn't want children to experience joy. So let's hold on to joy as a common goal we have for the kids that we want our systems to serve better. A reminder about the rules of this activity. You put the dots by yourself, you do not put the dots together. Do it again. Which parts of our systems, not could if we did it this way, but right now, which parts are experienced, and in this moment you are thinking about kids. Do kids experience as joyful? Sit with the hard. And you should not be talking yet. This part's by yourself. All right. See a couple people still working. Will you show me on your fingers how many stickers you individually put down? By yourself. Okay, I see some fists. I see some 5s, 2, 3s. Some 5s over there, some 2s, some 4s, 5, 3, 1. Okay. I just want to mention, again, these routines can be adapted. A different way to do this would be to say, put stickers on what would feel incoherent. Think about what that might have surfaced differently for you and your group. I find putting it on only the ones that feel coherent to be a little bit more illuminating of what we might want to change, right? But again, lots of riffs. It would depend on the group I was working with. Let's do the same thing we did last time. This is bigger than us, right? It's bigger than the individual decisions we're making in our jobs. What are the ways our systems and broader society impede this goal that we have for our school systems? Go ahead and discuss. All right, if you can make it back to your seats. If you can make your way back to your seats. Okay. And we are going to hear from the remote site. If we could bring up the remote site. What were you thinking about up north there?
So one of the things that we talked about in our group was kind of the special education piece, how that's really so siloed and so different. And really at the end of the day, we know what our kids need is inclusive programming. That's what brings them joy. That's what helps them to build their relationships together. But right now we have a system that's inequitable with really unbalanced supports. That are just kind of all over the place, and nothing really jives very well for these kids. And it's definitely a problem that we try to solve, but has to be solved at a bigger level.
Yes, so we could list lots of parts of the system that are set up that way, right? It's in parts of our system and across the whole system. We're pushed and pushed and pushed away from letting children be the tiny, joyful humans that they are as part of their learning and part of their school, right? We could sit here a lot longer. I want you to just notice and think about what are the different things that when we focused on kids at the center of our Post-its, what conversations did that bring up for your team? When we focused on teachers, what conversations did that bring up? And notice how this could help you start to think about new design spaces, right? A lot of those conversations I heard, well, we could make this more joyful, or we could make this more messy and collaborative. That's the space to jump into and do something fundamentally different next year. This activity can help people surface, both sit with the hard, super important, and surface the design spaces for us to leap into, right? All right, so let's talk about what it even means to craft coherence then. Here's a really important distinction. And after today, I want you to listen to how do people use alignment and coherence. These words float around us all the time. Usually we mean alignment when we say, usually when people say coherence, they actually just mean alignment. Here's how I think about the difference. If this is the purpose and nature of our work, that pink dot, and these are parts of our system, alignment is making them all fit together in one moment in time. Okay? So our assessment and our curriculum and our, our report cards all have the same words, for instance, right? They are now aligned. That is not coherence. Coherence is a craft, is a way that I find really useful to think about it. A researcher, Meredith Honig, out of University of Washington, calls it muddling through. You muddle through it every single day. It's not something you do in one moment of time and you're done. So here's a different way to think about it. That pink line is the purpose and nature of your work. Here's your messy system. Here's what crafting coherence actually means. You're figuring out how this connects, how that connects, how can I make that fit? Oh, I actually have to have these three things fit together in order to fit in with the purpose and nature of our work. Oh, that needs to fit in that way. Oh, I actually need to loop these four things together in order for them to fit the purpose and nature of my work. This is important. Oh, that didn't work. I have to do it this way. Oh, now there are three big new things in my system that I had no control over. What am I going to do about that, right? Maybe I can connect this one in this way. Here's another one. Sometimes we are coherent here, and we're coherent here, and we're coherent here, but we actually haven't made the whole thing coherent. Or, this is often true, especially this point in the year, someone new comes to your system. Right? A new principal, a new superintendent maybe, a new coach, a new teacher. They don't know how anything fits together. So you kind of have to start all over with them for them to know how all of it fits together, right? The other thing that can happen is you might need to make, if you see that blue or purple circle at the top, you sometimes have to make things bigger or smaller in order for them to fit, right? Notice when I make it bigger, now it fits into that bigger loop. This is super important. One of the best ways to craft coherence is to take things out of your system, which we are terrible at in education. Absolutely terrible. Okay? So the key here is there's no magic recipe. If anyone tries to say, here's your 3 steps to coherence, please ignore them. There's no recipe. What it means for each of your tables to craft coherence in your system has to be different. Oh, this last point is sustainability lives in this mess. Because as we're trying to sustain an initiative, everything around it is changing, right? The math work is a great example right now. Huge shift that we're having to figure out how to sustain the work through by crafting coherence, right? Things change all the time. If we think sustainability is something we can plan for on Friday and be ready for the rest of the year, we're not going to sustain what we're trying to sustain. Sustainability is also this ongoing craft to continue to bring the work back to the purpose. All right, so there's 3 broad ways we can craft coherence then. For the things we can control, we can try to really work to make sure things fit together. As we've named, though, there are lots of things we cannot control. Here's what we have to do there, though, that's super important. We have to be on the lookout for the incoherences, and we have to, in whatever way we can do so, sometimes there's politics here, let's be real. We have to help our people make sense of the incoherences, because otherwise they're trying to make sense of it on their own. That is extra labor that we do not need to put on them, and they might make sense of it in a way that's not so useful for our goal, right? If we notice incoherences, we need to help people make sense of them, even if we can't take them away. And then the other thing we have to just do in an ongoing way is understand how teachers are experiencing or leaders are experiencing coherence over time, okay? So imagine doing this activity but getting teachers to write the post-its and then asking teachers to tell you what feels coherent or not. Or if you support principals, imagine having them do this for their own jobs and then asking them where they experience coherence or incoherence. That's going to be your best signal into what you need to do differently. All right? So broadly, there's a lot of ways we can craft coherence. I think you probably heard most of these in what I just said. This design across events piece is really important though, right? How can I have similar activities or slides or ideas across many events rather than just kind of like, oh, we did that, check. Oh, we did that, check, right? And then working across silos we've been talking about a lot, a really, really important strategy for coherence. We're going to lean into the hardest one, the removing something one. Okay, this is just an experiment of playing around. You are not committing to this. I want to name that. Your job is going to be to go to your poster and find 3 things that are incoherent with collaborative messy experimentation that you could remove from teachers' plates. Now, you might be inclined to cheat and do something like really, really tiny. Try to lean in and actually imagine a world where you take something bigger off. Okay, go give it a try. Lean into the hard. If you're getting stuck in the, but I don't have control, set that aside for right now. This is just an experiment. What would you remove if you could, and what impact would that have? Okay, I wish we could stick on this for a while. Could you come back to your seats so we can get ready for lunch, though? And I'm actually going to talk as you're moving back to your seats because we only have 5 minutes. Okay. I want to lift up something I noticed across the conversations I got to be a part of. There was 2 themes I saw. One was, how can we remove the stuff that doesn't have to do with learning and teaching so that they have more space to do the learning and teaching, right? I want to name there's resource issues here. Let's not pretend that's not true. But I saw people removing things like recess duty, bus duty, covering other people's classrooms. I want to name there's resource challenges there that are sometimes impossible to solve. Let's name that, but also notice that as a strategy. What can we take off people's plates so that they have more space to do the real work? That's one like broad category of things I saw. Another thing I saw happening at a lot of tables was, well, we literally cannot remove that. But what if we? Sometimes having the conversation of, oh, I wish we could take that out, helps open up a space for how could we do that fundamentally differently? So we have to do it. We have to do state testing. Are there ways we could do it fundamentally differently so we're still complying, but doing it in a way that aligns with what we believe, right? That's the space this conversation can open up. All right. If we had more time, I would have loved to like go around and hear some of the other things. It could be interesting to talk about at lunch. Like, what did it feel like to remove things? What kind of conversation might you have when you go back home and maybe do this with a bigger team about removing things? I need to prepare you a tiny bit, and I'm going to zoom through this. I'm going to come back to it, I promise. This is a preview. Look how cool it's going to be after lunch. Come back. Okay. Our routines are not magic, but I'm hoping you're seeing like if you did this kind of routine over and over again, maybe, I don't know, every 6 months, or if you did it for different people in your system, how might that help your team develop a different vision of your system and think about different things to do? After lunch, we're going to go to breakouts, and we've designed breakouts in a really intentional way. Hopefully you see some design for coherence here. These 4 things are parts of our learning systems. You are all in different places in your implementation of them. They are not magic. They can often just be yet another thing that actually just means everyone's doing the same thing they've always done, or they can lead to something really powerful, right? They can be designed to support messy collaborative experimentation, or they can be designed to continue to kill it. Learning labs can be done in 1,000 ways, right? I previewed my slide. Okay. All of these can be done in 1,000 ways. What we're going to do in breakouts is zoom in on one of them and think about what would it look like to enact it in a way that fosters collaborative experimentation. And we're going to use the coherence routine on this card. Every group's going to do the same routine, but you're going to focus on different things. So what I would encourage you to do is think about which one of these would push your thinking most. Maybe which one feels the hardest to really think about messy collaborative experimentation in. That may be the one you want to lean into as a learner and join that breakout, okay? So the breakouts are in the program. A couple of them have 2 different rooms. And you can think about which one you would like to go to after lunch. Math team, is there anything I should add before lunch? Oh, I have the privilege of announcing the menu. Don't ask me any questions about it. Yesterday what we did, we went out this door and then back in over there. That was a good way to get to the buffet. So after lunch, you'll find your breakouts at 12:30, and then we'll come back and wrap up the day together. Thank you so much for your engagement and deep, hard thinking this morning.